The things that I really enjoyed was like starting businesses, and I had a lot of admiration for local business people in my community, and just how they served the community, but also how they were able to create financial freedom for themselves. I got a little bit tired of working 12-hour days for somebody else's dream, and I knew that I had my own dream and wanted to move closer to ultimately starting my own company. But one thing that I had a mental block with early on was the sales process. And what I ended up doing as a remedy to that is I actually skip traced the list, and I just cold called for a couple of weeks, just for the sole fact of facing rejection.
You've only sent 40,000 mailers or so, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Like it's $30,000 of cost, maybe 40 if you say $1 per mail, but it's not that much really. And you've made $289,000. Like you do not have to be overly efficient with mail.
Almost nothing the first 6 months.
He hasn't been efficient with mail overall. If he sent 40,000, he's got 9 deals start to finish. He's got 3 more in the pipeline. He's not overly efficient with mail, but it doesn't matter.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Justyn Bostic. Justyn drove down from Columbus to Cincinnati to our new headquarters, and it's our first in-person recording with a guest. Welcome in, Justyn. We're pumped to have you.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Good stuff. So first I want to talk about your journey. You know, what's your background from college? Did you go to college? I want to hear about your whole background in general, your childhood, and just take us through to when you started land flipping. And then from land flipping, we'll get later on in the episode from that journey forward.
Yeah, perfect. So I grew up in a large family with 8 kids, and in that came a lot of independence, and just keeping myself busy. And one of the things that I really enjoyed in my free time was like starting businesses, and I had a lot of admiration for local business people in my community, and just how they served the community, but also how they were able to create financial freedom for themselves. So I was flipping candy bars and wrestling shoes. I was a wrestler growing up, all the way from a young age. And when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to study business, specifically finance. I knew I wanted to create my own company, try and bring a new product or concept to market, and learn the kind of the principles behind raising capital, and being a part of a venture-backed startup. And so after college, I went into a venture-backed startup in the cannabis industry, and spent a few years there. We raised $50 million, and I served in a marketing and sales capacity. So I learned a lot about converting somebody from you never contacted them, it was a brand new industry, in fact, all the way to bringing them to the close point in a B2B sense. And so gathered some marketing experience at that startup. Eventually, I got a little bit tired of working 12-hour days for somebody else's dream. And I knew that I had my own dream and wanted to move closer to ultimately starting my own company. And so I quit that job and actually went into working in construction. And I was renovating multifamily real estate in the city of Columbus for friends. And I had already purchased some rental property on the side that I had renovated and furnished and was renting rooms out. But this to me was a next step in the direction of finding my own business, and specifically real estate started to make more and more sense. And I got some great mentors on that journey. And so I was doing construction for one of my buddies, renovating a 14 unit, a 7 unit, 11 unit for about a year and a half. And as I was doing construction last year at this time, I heard your guys' podcast and got introduced to the concept of land investing. And I saw my path going more in the direction of doing construction and doing new builds. But I was just intrigued by the idea of finding an off-market lead. I knew the way, the power position that you got in the marketplace if you found a great deal off-market, just from friends and colleagues in the real estate space. And so I wanted to give it a try with the idea of potentially doing a new build. Yeah. But after learning your guys' business model a lot more intricately and getting into the principles and the details, and just the mastery of the flip, I got way more interested in just doing the traditional flipping model full time. And so I started in April, it was April 17th of 2023. We're like March, I think it's 14th today. So a little under a year. And to this point, my company, by the end of this month, will have generated $280,000 in deal profit. And we have another about 80 in the pipeline right now.
Nice.
So it's been a good start, a fast start. A lot of great learnings. Being a part of the community has been a critical component of early success. So yeah, happy to be here and answer any questions about the land flipping business.
So you were running a construction company, then heard of land flipping. Is that construction company completely gone now? What's that going on?
Yeah, it was more of like a shell company that I was kind of the project manager. We hired on team members, but it was really just for renovating properties that my friends owned.
Got it. And you said you grew up with eight siblings.
8 siblings, yes.
So it's a family of 9, including you?
Yes. Yeah.
And then 11 with your parents?
Yes.
Wow. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm the second oldest of 8, and it was a wild family dynamic growing up. We're still all very close to this day. But a lot of that just built in sort of a sense of resilience and kind of the need to just be an individual or to individuate earlier on, to find my own interests, the things that I was passionate about, and bring that to the table with my family. And so part of my journey, even now, I'm always trying to learn and then pass that on to my younger siblings. But it was a really fun dynamic. I'm hoping that a couple of my younger brothers want to come on and join the land flipping business full time. So
business,
one of them's graduating this year, and I think he's going to come online with us. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So Justyn, a lot of people talk about like their first 6 months in the business, and obviously we're talking about you're almost a year in. Can you talk about those? There's a lot of hurdles that go into like starting this business, learning. One thing from you, like you being pretty active in the community, not the most active person in the community, not the least, but it was, you always had like a positive mindset. Like you're always excited. You're always pushing forward, always getting deals reviewed. But talk about your first 6 months in the business as a whole, what that looked like, if you're successful, or if there's a lot of learning lessons, everything like that.
Yeah, 100%. There's been a lot of learning, and a lot of the way that I looked at my jump or dive into land investing was, it was a new environment where I could apply new principles and change my thinking in the way that I relate to my life, to my process. And so when I started the land investing journey, I wanted to make sure that I was operating at my edge as far as where I was comfortable and uncomfortable. So a lot of the data side of things made a lot of sense to me early on, and just getting the marketing out, sending the mail. But one thing that I had a mental block with early on was the sales process and dealing with hate mail or hate mail returned or hate calls. And that really weighed on me. And it took, for me early on, like what I ended up doing as a remedy to that, is I actually skip traced the list, and I just cold called for a couple of weeks, just for the sole fact of facing rejection and feeling uncomfortable. And I was doing this in an environment where there was other people cold calling in the real estate brokerage in Columbus. So I didn't feel so alone in that process. I can imagine that would have been more challenging if I didn't have other people around me. But that cold calling for 2 weeks really kind of got me out of my own way and out of my head in these conversations, and allowed me to build a script and test that script, and ultimately understand the conversation dynamics a little bit more thoroughly. And, that first 6 months, I bought and sold 1 deal total. It took me from April 17th. I think the first day that I recorded a sale was October 29th. And so it was a long while of waiting, continuing to apply the model. I still had other leads coming in, but I made mistakes early on, and I made mistakes on my first deal. There's one story in specific that on this first deal, I purchased this property. I did not know that the mineral rights were separated from the ground estate, and I didn't know that was a defect specifically in this area. And so we had purchased the property at a great price. We still knew even without mineral rights we could sell it. But I went as far as to finding the owner of the mineral rights and trying to reach out to this individual and come to a way that I could reacquire those mineral rights, sell the estate back together. And reached out to this guy, had a great dialogue, and we got to the point where I put probably 12 hours of research into what was a good, even, fair price to him, sent it off to him, and the guy called me and he called me a clown and this and that, and just it was an experience where I still hadn't been paid. I felt relatively like low as far as the response to all this effort that I was trying to bring this guy some value, and it really made me question, like, hey, what, like, do I actually want to keep doing this? And I think it was in that moment that I was just like, it was painful, but I was like, you know what? I've put it on the line for this far. I know it can't get any more painful than this. Like, I'm just going to keep going. It doesn't get much worse than someone calling you a clown.
Yeah.
And so, so pretty much like I just took that loss kind of in stride. Also learned that, maybe it wasn't the most efficient time trying to reconnect the mineral estate to the land estate. Ended up getting out of that deal and still making a great profit on it. But it was really just being at that edge and being uncomfortable, making an offer I had never made before, structuring a deal I'd never structured before, in a mineral estate, which I really didn't have a lot of background or context in. And so there, for me, a lot of it was just a willingness to be the beginner, to be the fool in the process, and to get real-time feedback and take that feedback to heart and make better decisions faster. That's something I'm always telling myself in my business is try and learn from this decision. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger and make a decision, and keep moving things forward. And good things are inevitably going to happen if I keep that posture.
Yeah, really good points. And one thing I want to point out, like the first 6 months always the hardest, and you're obviously getting momentum now. I mean, just speaking to the numbers, you said you had $280,000 of profit since?
Yes.
And you had one deal in the first 6 months?
Yes.
So and you said October
29th
29th was that last, was your first deal?
First deal that disposed on the sell side, correct.
So since November to it's only March, you've had majority of that 280.
Yeah, yes.
So the momentum's definitely picking up. I mean, those are really good numbers, just thinking the last 6 months. What got you through those first 6 months to see, like, what mentally got you through that? Like, how'd you stay every day? Like, you're putting everyday work into this every single day over and over again with only one deal. What got you staying pushing?
Yeah, there was a point in time for me, just the way that I had set things up personally in my life. I kind of burned the boats when I was coming into this business model. I was funding it on a home equity line of credit as far as my deals getting funded, getting creative as far as having 0% APR cards to fund my mail, and really just kind of fighting tooth and nail to get my mail out and get as much learning as possible. And then, there was just this willingness that, if I have to lose my house, like trying to get this business going, like I'm willing to lose that. And it was, there was times where I actually thought that was a possibility, but I also knew the principles that I was being taught and the community that I was surrounded with. I felt relatively safe on that front. And I knew that the deals that were in my pipeline were ultimately going to mature. It was just a matter of time of committing myself to mastering the principles that would allow me to be successful with those deals.
Talk about the community a little bit, because Greg said the same thing.
I was just saying that, yeah. Greg literally said the same thing. Like, would you have quit without the community? Or
if
you
you
seem pretty
soldier.
resilient in terms of it, but
everyone's different, yeah.
Yeah, like, talk about that.
Yeah. I don't know if I would have quit because of the community, but what the community allowed me to do was it allowed me to see a large volume of deals, and watching Ron and you comp land every Wednesday. Like that was something I watched religiously. I went back and I watched previous comping videos, and this was something that I really wanted to master very early on and very quickly. So even when I didn't have deals that were necessarily super profitable or in the pipeline, I knew that the deals that were coming in, I had a lot of confidence in them. And so that element of seeing the community really investing themselves into the marketplace, testing this business model, being willing to make mistakes, being surrounded by other people who were doing that gave me a lot of confidence that I could do it too. It was just a matter of time and skill building until I got there.
And he kind of, Dan, I've never heard someone say it in terms of like, he cold called to make himself uncomfortable, essentially, which is like, I don't want to brush over what you did in terms of that, because that's, I've never heard it, honestly. A lot of people cold call because they don't have money. You had some mail money behind you or credit card money behind you or whatever it was, but you did it literally just to get reps in being uncomfortable, which is that's the reason you did it, right, essentially?
Yeah, and a lot of what I've learned on my business journey and talking to high-level business owners is there's just this thorough commitment to mastery. And so when I learned about the land model, I knew that there was the mastery of the operations, the mastery of the marketing, the mastery of sales, and then the mastery of relationship building and disposing of these properties. And you could add funding in there as well. But I knew that the sales area was the area that I had the least amount of experience and I felt the most uncomfortable with. And so I knew that was going to be my Achilles heel if I didn't address it. And so that was the intention behind that was, hey, I want to continue to develop as a salesperson. And so, it's reading sales books, it's doing cold calls. Sometimes when I'm uncomfortable now, I'll skip trace numbers and just, bang a bunch of cold calls out to get reconditioned to, being willing to put an offer out there, being willing to sit in silence on the phone, being willing to learn from what this seller is giving me as far as feedback. Every single phone call was a learning experience, and that's still to this day how I really view that relationship with sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because that's something that I've talked about in the past. Taking a D salesman and bringing them to a B minus or B or whatever you think you're at now, but that's possible. Like you might not be the greatest salesman ever, from just repetition on it, but you can certainly get good enough to really do well. And the people who struggle in this business are the people who come in and they're scared of the phones and they're not calling people back. There's people who don't call people back if they don't leave a voicemail. And they're like, you just got to be so aggressive on the phones. And I just want to shout that out because arguably, like, those are the pillars you just listed out, but the sales pillar, like acquisition pillar, is probably more important. It's towering over most of those other pillars in terms of importance.
100%. It's said in real estate, you make your money on the buy. And that is the
right price.
Key to opening up the doorway to making great money. So I think, the sales element, I think, is the most important element in the business. And it's something for me, I'm going to continue to focus on learning and growing.
And we, to be honest, to everyone listening, a lot of people aren't members of the community or members of our program. Like some of the stuff Justyn's used is from our program, obviously. But like these other things, like I've never told anyone cold call people. Like I've said, be aggressive on the phone. We said call people back. But a lot of this stuff that Justyn's doing, it's just like, okay, I need to work on my salesmanship. How do I do that? I get reps in. So props to you with that. Like you've done an unbelievable job. We didn't know all this coming into this interview.
No,
I just know you've been successful. But let's kind of talk about those. How many deals have you done so far?
So 9 will be through maturity at the end of this month.
Start to finish?
Yep.
Okay. And then how many do you have you're buying right now or for sale?
Another 3 on the buy side.
Okay. So you're staying busy for sure, which is awesome. How much mail have you sent?
So the first wave in 2023 was 24,000. We have probably about 36,000 lines of data that we've downloaded since the start of this year. And we're just working through sending out that mail, probably about 10K a month.
You kind of slowly filter it out or send it out. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we send out about 2 counties a week.
Yeah. So do you think like the thing that, because obviously first 6 months of not having it, you have 1 deal, which is normal. Like it is a normal thing. And so many people quit at that point where like, it is a learning phase. Like that's what I talked about in the episode the other day is like, it is a learning phase. Those first 6 months, you might make some money. You're probably like, you might be breaking even. You might make a little bit of money. You might lose a little bit of money. It's just the reality of it. But talk about like, how has your mail efficiency improved over, is that just directly related to your sales or a combination of things?
Yeah. So I think it's just making the most out of every opportunity that you have. And, that first wave of mail, we sent out 24,000 in 2023. And that equates to about 1 deal for every 2,600 mailers. But, 2 of those contracts that were signed recently were from mail that I sent back in October. And so these are people that are reaching out later on.
It's really important.
The other element to it that I've done things a little bit differently in my business is I actually go out and view every property myself. And if possible, I try and meet the owner in person. And so whenever I hop on a sales call with somebody, my intention is to create as deep of a relationship as possible so that, because the likelihood that they have other mail is very high. I've gotten told that on 3 of my deals that, hey, I have other pieces of mail, even a better price. And they ended up going with me because of the relationship that we had built. And so a lot of the improving mail efficiency is just taking advantage of every opportunity that you have, investing into that relationship, understanding why the seller wants to sell, understanding that the seller may not be ready to sell right now, but I've had this happen before. Somebody gives you a call 2 months later and they're like, hey, we're ready to go. We got this figured out with our family. And I'm right there ready to seize that opportunity, staying ready, kind of in the crosshairs to take advantage and to provide a great service to that seller. And so a lot of the way that I think about mail and ultimately turning that into a good purchase is building the relationship with the seller and ultimately just staying ready, being ready at any time to offer a great service and delivering on that service, over communicating continuously with that seller, with the title company, and making sure that they feel like they're being taken care of by a true professional in this space.
Yeah. And you're looking at everything internally, like what can I do better?
Never blaming the business.
Rather than blaming external factors or the economy or whatever, the county you're in or whatever it is. But I just want to shout that out. You're being very, very aggressive on the acquisition side, which is awesome. Like if someone gets multiple mailers and they just see the piece of paper. But Justyn goes over, meets the guy in person, shakes his hand, talks to him, reaffirms he can get his money in a couple weeks. Like that stuff, you are going to beat competition over and over and over again doing that. So when you guys talk about like your mail rate and how many deals you're getting per mail and all those different things, like think of how to lower that through relationships and things like that. I just want to shout that out. You're not thinking within a box. You're way outside the box. Like I don't hear a lot of people doing this at all. And I want to reiterate that with anyone listening. Like that's how everyone should be running their business. This business, every person's different. Justyn didn't have great sales experience. He was different. So what did he do? He cold called. He's coming up with solutions based on him, not the land flipping business model necessarily, just based on you, your weakness, what can improve your business best. So I wanted to just reiterate that.
Yeah. So Justyn, real fast, what are your 2024? So how many deals did you go through maturity in 2023?
So in 2023, that would have been 6 deals.
6 deals and how much money?
In 23, that would have been my first wave of mail in 23 was 24,000 mailers. Those mailers generated $289,000 of deal profit. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So you have a lot of deals that are still in the back. Okay, that makes sense. So what going forward, like you can see the momentum. You can feel the momentum that you have, like compared to where you were. Like looking back 6 months, I'm sure it's crazy. Like crap, I was fighting for my life 6 months ago in this business. I'm worried about my house going under, all this other stuff. And now you're like, okay, am I going to make $500,000 this year, $800,000, $1 million? What are your goals for 2024?
Yeah.
Because your margins are like, I was looking at your little amazing document that you had. Like your margins are just like steep incline, 40,000, 60,000, 70,000. It just keeps going up.
Yeah. Tangibly, like I want to hit the $1 million mark. And if that happens in 24, great. I'm ultimately in this for the long game.
Yeah.
I can see myself doing this for the next decade, 2 decades, continuing to play in the real estate space. So a lot of it for me is just continuing to focus on skill set mastery. And, focusing on that acquisition, disposition, fundraising, operations, and marketing, and just, having a real frame of how am I going to grow as a marketer this year, this month, this quarter? How am I going to grow in sales this year, this month, this quarter? And I have those broken down. So it's reading, a sales book a quarter. So I'm just focused more on the skill set acquisition, and I think the results are going to come. And that's just what my journey has shown me.
That's awesome.
And so, tangibly, I'd like to hit the $1 million mark. If it happens in 8 months, great. If it happens in a year, great. If it happens in 3 years, great. But I'm going to keep chomping at the bit and taking advantage of every opportunity. And when that $1 million mark comes, that's great.
So do you have certain types of deals that you're going after? And we're not going to talk about areas or anything like that, location you're doing deals in, but certain type of deals, sizes that you're doing, double closes maybe. What's kind of your strategy right now?
Yeah. So I tend to try to stay away from anything in the lower acreage ranges. So typically I'm trying to look for something 5 acres or higher.
Got it.
And ultimately, the types of deals that we're attracting more recently are more rec land focused and bringing on. I have partners kind of in the wings that are ready to do land management work, set things up for a hunting property, great realtors as well. So I think focusing on kind of value add deals in that realm is interesting and where we're headed. And then the other that we're kind of engineering a process for is capturing more entitlement deals, which generally are going to have different contractual terms. But we have this machine that ultimately finds off-market deals. We can do the same with entitlement deals, and you're going to have to offer that seller more money. So currently building out those systems, but really, I mean, it's not a whole lot different what I'm doing relative to what you teach in the course. I have my kind of markets that I focus on that are local to me because I know those markets. I know, what land goes for in those areas. I can also call 1 or 2 people is a phone call away in order for me to, understand what's going on in that area, just because I work in the state that I live in, and I will continue to do that.
I love it.
Got it. I want to follow up something we didn't really touch on, individual deals. What's your average profit per deal roughly?
I think it's like 37.
Oh, wow. That's after or before funding?
No, that's after funding. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So you're getting, that's the 5 acre thing. You're just not getting anything under $15,000 or so?
Yeah, pretty much.
And do you have you're talking about improvements and value add? Do you want to bring that $37,000 up, or do you want to stay around there? Like what deal sizes are you looking forward to?
I think we'll continue to maintain our intention is to maintain the same pace that we're going at right now, which is the flipping side of things, and then peppering in more entitlement deals. Like we're working on an entitlement process right now. It's an entirely different process, but you know, we'll have one or two of those value add deals going while we continue to run the core business model that's taken us to where we're at right now. And it's going to take us where we want to go in the future. So I'm not changing a whole lot from the business model, but trying to, once again, get more reps learning something as far as a niche that, you know, we could get pretty dangerous in, and continuing to try to bring those opportunities in for learning purposes only.
And your core business model right now is based off mail solely?
Yeah,
and then you're cold calling on the side a little bit.
It's all mail that has driven results.
Yeah.
Cold calling is for training. I've had a couple deals that came through, but they weren't great margins. It's
From cold calling?
Yeah, not like that we actually closed on. We ended up not moving forward,
Okay.
but yes, a couple leads came through that direction. So all of this has been driven by mail. We are doing follow up texting now.
Nice.
And you know,
how's that been?
We're one county in. It's been all right. We're mainly just learning how we want to filter these leads.
Yeah, it's tough.
And
It's
yeah,
tough.
Yeah. what our text rate is going to be as far as how fast we follow up. There's a lot of learning. I think it's going to take us a few months to really get our feet under us with that.
And someone came to me with the problem, they're not getting enough leads from mail the other day. And I said, you want leads, define leads. And then they define leads for me. I said, you want that? Start texting because you'll get 20% of those.
Right.
So you got to look at, like, what are your main KPIs you're looking at in your business?
Yeah. I mean, the number one is opportunities converted.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I have 13 qualified leads with great land at a great price, I want 13 deals in my pipeline. And so, you know, I'm trying to convert 100%. So that's the number one area of focus as far as KPIs, but we do track, you know, what our mail rate is per month. We want to be at that, you know, 8,000 to 10,000 mark, per month, at least in 24. And then, you know, over time, like I don't like to track KPIs as far as my process goals a whole lot, but like when we come and zoom back out and we look at 23, kind of this first season of land investing, if you will, that's when I'm really looking deep at like, hey, what was my most effective county that I mailed? What were the ratios as far as sale to sold? Like what were my indicators as why I selected that market? I'm going back and looking at those markets that we were successful in. And now I'm going to select my markets in 24 that look exactly like those markets, going to remail the ones that we've been more successful in. So really kind of try to stay out of over analyzing the data just because I'm naturally, you guys can see my sheets.
Yeah.
I definitely overbuild things.
He's got a pulse on his numbers. This document's all full of everything he knows.
Yeah. But main thing, man, is just staying in the process and continuing to orient toward learning. And I think the results come.
Yeah. And you're like, when you talk, I'm just thinking you're building a business. Like your pillars are so strong. Your skill sets are going to be so strong. No matter what the competition does, no matter where it looks like in 5 years, what it looks like, you're going to have the skills to build this up. Things are going to change. Maybe direct mail, something happens. Let's say direct mail got illegal and there were people just stopped mailing. That's not going to happen. But you're going to build up systems for texting and all that, just everything, your acquisitions model, all the pillars are going to be strong because you're building a business, not an individual. Like your skills are going up, your business is really solidified. So I've like through these external factors, as things change, I feel very strong that 10 years down the road, you're going to be in a really, really good place.
And it's cool to see like everyone we have on the podcast who is that successful, Justyn, more successful, and they've been in a little longer, whatever it is. Like they're all doing something, like a little tweak, a little niche. Like we don't have everyone, a lot of people say they're meeting people in person. Just those little things that make you convert deals more are like huge. And it's so, the learning, like you're doing learning by yourself for sure. Like you're going out, you're testing things, you're doing all these different things. Talk real fast, Justyn, about the mindset. Like, do you care about mail success rate, or how do you like? So many people get so worked up in their deals per mailer. Like they sent 4,000 mailers, didn't get a deal, or whatever.
It wasn't in his KPIs. He just told us.
Yeah, he didn't say it there, but so you analyze what happened. Like, did I underprice mail? Whatever the situation is. But what's your kind of mindset? Do you care if you send 4,000 mailers, or what? If you send 4,000 mailers and don't get a deal or don't get good results, what are you looking at, if anything?
I might go back and check my pricing. I might go analyze the market a little bit more to just get feedback. Like if I blanked on an entire county, I want to know why. So I'm going to look at that and try to learn from that. But for the most part, I'm not going to sweat it. I know that it's a game of attrition. Like there's only so many sellers in each county that are ready to sell their land, that are motivated, that want to take advantage of our offer. For those people that are ready, we're going to be ready when they're ready. And we're going to capture that opportunity. We're going to provide them the best service. We're going to be the best land company they've ever worked with. But for the most part, like I'm just waiting for that opportunity, and I don't get too wrapped up if I, blank on 6,000 mailers in a row. Like that's happened. And I think, even those ones that I quote unquote blanked on, 3 months down the line, you have somebody reach out and they're like, hey, I have this mailer. Are you interested in still working together?
100%.
Yes, I 100% am. We're ready to go. And so, yeah, I think it's just not getting too caught up in those numbers. I mean, you definitely want to be learning. I know of other investors that I've talked with or worked with that, haven't seen great results on mail. So if you're looking for outside feedback, like only you can tell if you're not maybe understanding the exact model and how to price your mail. Like if you need help, reach out and get help. But for me, like I feel confident in our pricing model. I feel confident in the numbers that we've sent. I have enough feedback from the marketplace that says we're in a good position. So I don't get too wrapped up if we have 4,000 or 5,000 mailers that lead to no contacts.
I think what you said, Dan, like wraps it up like so well, opposed to him like not talking externally about it. Like it hasn't once been anything external.
I mean,
like
it's a
I was
proven
surprised that
business
he was
model.
going to say I cold call people. Every solution Justyn has is I cold call people. If a mailer doesn't do well, I cold call 20 people and ask them why the hell didn't you call me back? Yeah, like it's just always you're solving the puzzle. Like there's puzzles in this business and you solve them, opposed to like, okay, what happened? It's the county's fault. It's the mail's fault.
It doesn't
X's
work.
fault. It doesn't work. There's too many people doing this. It's all the stuff we hear for sure. But you weren't making money at first. You've only sent 40,000 mailers or so. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Like it's $30,000 of cost, maybe 40 if you say $1 per mail, but it's not that much really with data and everything. And you've made $289,000. Like you do not have to be overly efficient with mail.
Almost nothing the first 6 months.
He hasn't been efficient with mail overall. If he sent 40,000, he's got 9 deals start to finish. He's got 3 more in the pipeline. He's not overly efficient with mail, but it doesn't matter.
The numbers
his margins
speak.
are good. His numbers speak. He's extremely
$37,000 profit. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I had to give, I was thinking about my intention for this episode today, and one thing was just connecting with other land investors who are on the journey, who maybe are in the process of taking their lumps. And there's 2 things for me that come to mind. The first is, making this business your own. So if you know that you have a strong skill set in sales or you have a strong skill set in numbers, building that business around your skill sets.
I love that.
And ultimately figuring out what you're not good at and creating a process that allows you to make it a game with yourself to get better. Like we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. Like that was the biggest thing for me about cold calling was I was taking myself so seriously, these deals so seriously. I just needed to get out there and get rejected a bunch so that I could get a nice taste of humble pie and ultimately know, what service we're providing in the marketplace. And the other one that came to mind for me was just knowing your why, knowing your story. That's part of the sale. Yeah. That's part of the relationship that you build with a seller is telling your story, telling why you're doing this. Now, ultimately, you're there to solve their problem. You're not making the sale about you, but to know where you fit into the market as far as offering cash transactions that are very efficient, paying for closing costs, like you hold a position in the marketplace and know what that position is, offer that service and deliver on that service at an exceptional level. Big time. If you can do those 2 things, build it around yourself and just stay committed to offering a great product and service, I think the rest will work itself out.
That's big time. I love that. Well, we definitely have to have a part 2 of one of these, Dan.
Yeah, this was good, man. We can dive into all this stuff.
He's doing things differently, which I love. Like that's what I really love, learning other people's stories, and you're motivating too. For people who are listening, like you're motivating.
The 6 month things,
getting started, like you've learned 6 months. It's so normal. Yeah. 6 months and breaking even, 6 months and losing a little money, 6 months and barely profitable, whatever it is. But I don't think I have anything else for this one, Dan. Like I said, we need to do a part 2 for sure.
Yeah, where can people find you? Where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, if you're a member of the community, you want to reach out, I'm on Discord, happy to chat. Love to connect with people on one-on-one convos. That would be probably the best place to connect with me in the land investing world.
Well, thanks for joining, man.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
As always, thank you guys for joining. Please hit a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It really helps drive our mission forward. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.